What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on Buy Sell Cars TV. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So we're actually going to be talking about this specific car which I'm sat in now. It's a BMW E38 735i Sport. I'm sure probably the title says something along those lines. I actually bought this car about a year ago and it's never really been on the channel, and I haven't really done much with it, to be honest with you. So I thought, you know what, let me make a video. I'll explain everything, sort of why I bought this car and obviously just, you know, the reasons behind it, and just talk about some of the issues that this car has had over that year. To be honest with you, look, I haven't driven it a lot, but I just thought, why not make a video on this car? You know, it's such a cool car. You don't see them on the road very often, and back in the day this was proper presidential stuff. So enough of me rambling on now. Let's take this out on the road. I'm going to talk to you about the backstory of how this car came along, and obviously we'll go into a bit more detail with how it's been over the last sort of year. So let's take it out now. Right, so how did this car come about into my life? Well, the way that it came was I was doing my usual day-to-day activities of, you know, looking to buy new stock from BCA auction. I saw the car and I liked the spec of it. It was a sport, it was a black with black leather. Big fan of that. You know, back in the day, two-pack used to drive a 750 long wheelbase. I think it was a 750 or 760. Well, he had the V12 anyway, but it was a black on black. So I was a big fan of that car. It looked proper old school. I saw that and I thought, you know what, that's a bit of me. I'm not a gangster, but I quite like the black on black cars. I just thought, I'll keep an eye on it. You know, if it goes for a decent price, I'll take a punt. It's a cool car. It's not a crazy amount of money either. You know, spec wise, just some of the things to point out. You know, it's got your widescreen nav, heated seats, sunroof as well, which is absolutely fantastic. You know, a few of the nice options that you would want to have on a luxury car. And back in the day as well, things like satellite navigation was a big thing, having that in a car. You know, we're talking 22 years ago, so having these things in a car was quite the luxury back then as well. So I kept an eye on it, bidded on the car, got it for a reasonable price. It wasn't too far away. It was over in Enfield auction as well, so I went there, picked up the car, and it seemed okay. You know, there was obviously, I'm not going to say it's a garage queen because it's far from it. There are a lot of things that do need doing to this car. Bodywork's obviously had some repairs, got a little bit of rust and stuff on the car. Nothing too crazy, but like it's far from a garage queen. It's done 163,000 miles, and when I bought it, I think it was on 161, so it's been driven. But the other thing which attracted me to this car was the fact that the last owner owned it since 2006. So to me, that's a big thing, because I would have thought, if he's had it since the car was 4 or 5 years old, it's probably been looked after. It has been looked after, but not necessarily as well as I would have liked, to be honest. So in terms of service history on the car, it has got about 15 services, but there are the odd few little gaps and things in between. And unfortunately, you know, I don't have any paperwork, so I've got a service book with obviously all the stamps in there and the mileage, along with some of the work that's been carried out. In terms of invoices, you know, people tend to have other repairs done in between services. I haven't got any of that, so it's a little bit unfortunate. It would have been nice to know other work which would have been carried out on this car, because there are a lot of things on these 735s, or even just E38s, in terms of sort of maintenance work that do need to get done, like the timing chain or the guides. There's a couple of things, but you know, it would have been helpful had there been invoices to sort of give you a bit more of an idea on the car. But look, it's not end of the world. You know, it's a really old car. You can compromise to some extent with these. Like I say, it's not crazy money. These cars aren't worth crazy money either. But I must add, having a genuine sport, which this is, that is a good premium, because a lot of people don't have the sports. You know, they'll put all the bumpers, the wheels, the interior in, so it looks the same. But there is one way which you can find this out. You can decode the VIN. So when you do go to look at a car, get the VIN number, go on Google. There's free websites that, you know, like BMW decoders. So you just put the VIN number in and it tells you the original spec of the car from when it was new. So you'll know, are these factory options or not? It's just something for you to note when you are buying a 7 Series. Now, in terms of my ownership with this car, so I've had it for about a year now. I've probably driven, I'm going to say, just over 1,000 miles, and most of that was done when I first bought the car, I'll be honest with you. Since July up until January, literally just, you know, just now, the car was just parked up, gathering dust, you know, neglected, if I'm honest. The car ran out of MOT and I just didn't really have a use for this car at the time. That does lead to cars having issues as well. Cars do like to be driven. I'm not going to get so much into the common problems of these cars because I'm sure a lot of you have probably done your research. There's plenty of forums, plenty of things out there to tell you about the common things to look out for, but each car is different, so just bear that in mind. So rather than me give you the common problems of these cars, I'm just going to give you an insight into the problems I've had with this specific car. Now, in terms of things that I've had to get done during my ownership, the first thing I done obviously was get the car serviced, just because, you know, I don't know a crazy amount about the history of the car. So I had a major service done on the car, all the filters, all the fluids. Now I'm talking everything, you know, even your gearbox fluid, I had all that changed. The gearbox did have a slight hiccup. It was sort of just coming out of gear sometimes. It can be a bit of a common issue. The temperature sensor, what loom pack, I can't remember, it was like 200 quid or something, right? But it was a temperature related sensor that actually is within the gearbox, which, you know, when that gives false readings and the gearbox starts to play up a little bit. And the other issue I had as well actually was the sunroof. So I opened the sunroof when I went to collect the car. It opened fine, but then it wouldn't close. And thank God the weather was okay and it wasn't raining. So it literally would open, but halfway, not even halfway, about a quarter of way from when you're trying to close it, it would just jam. I even took the casing out, and you know, you can manually do these roofs with the Allen key. It was the same, it was just jammed. So it wasn't something wrong with the motor, there was just something that was jammed. So I had to get that fixed as well. Obviously the service and the transmission temperature sensor loom, all of that, all in all, it was close to £1,000. I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't far off from £1,000. You know, these cars aren't cheap to work on. That's something which I'm sure all of you lot already know, but if you don't, just do some research on these 7 Series. They can be expensive to maintain. Now, when you consider that I haven't even driven this car much, that's quite shocking. It's a lot of money. In terms of, you know, the cost per mile and repairs, this car's not been that great to me. But that comes with the ownership of having an E38, I guess. And whilst we're talking about maintenance as well, one of the things that you do need to take into consideration with these cars is the fuel. You know, this is the 3.5. As expected, it's not going to be great on fuel. You know, it probably does between 15 and 20 miles per gallon. It feels like it's worse than that, and that is something to look out for as well, by the way. These cars sometimes can leak fuel, so that is something worth checking as well, just to be on the safe side. But yeah, on average, between 15 and 20 miles per gallon. Now, the final thing in terms of cost I've had to this car was getting it MOT'd. So the MOT actually expired back in July, hence why I said the car wasn't really used from between July and January. So I took it for its MOT, and unfortunately it failed, and it failed on rust. So it wasn't ideal, but both rear seals had rust. Now, it's not ideal, but it's not obviously end of the world either in terms of sort of getting those fixed. So had to get those fixed, obviously, to get it through its MOT. The rust wasn't too crazy, but still it needed doing, so that was something I had to factor in. And getting both of those done, I think it was around 300 quid to get those done, so not too crazy, but again, it's still an additional cost. And the thing with rust is sometimes it still can spread, so you know, it needs to be repaired to a good standard to prevent it from spreading. So that's the final point in terms of maintenance on this car during the year that I've had it. Now, the biggest thing which I've noticed, and funnily enough, I've noticed it today, so I'm feeling that this could be a new fault with the car. Sometimes when I pull up and put the car into park, I get a transmission light come up on the dash, and then the gearbox goes into, you know, its limp mode. Yeah, it's not ideal having the transmission light come on, but like I say, the car's driving perfectly fine now. You know, the gearbox is smooth, effortless, doesn't seem to be having any issues. It's just when you throw it into park, sometimes it just brings up the error code on the dash, like trans fail. But obviously, it's worth me just plugging the computer and finding out what it is, because I don't want to be driving a car if the transmission's broken. Could be causing more damage as well. So, you know, first thing I'm going to have to get done is get that plugged in to just check what it is. But it's not ideal, but these things happen. It's an old car. So where does that leave me with this E38? I'm not too sure. You know, I've got the car washed up today, I've driven it, done a bit of filming, and I absolutely love the car. It's such a cool car. You feel good driving it. It's so comfortable, it's luxury, and it just looks gangster. Let's be honest about it. It looks really good. So I'm a bit stuck with what to do with it. One of the issues I do have is obviously storage. I do have quite a few cars, obviously ones that I sell, as well as cars that I have in my, call it a collection. It's not really a collection, but cars I'd like to keep. So I don't know. We're gonna have to see over the next couple of weeks what I'm gonna do with this car. I might use it for the next few days. That might help me make my decision of what I want to do with it. But either way, I have to take into account it needs work. It is a bit of a project car. Yes, it drives well, but at the same time, it's going to need money spending on it. And I've got other cars there that need work doing as well. So, and it's about prioritizing here. So something that I'm going to have to think about. But overall, I absolutely love these cars. You know, got the sunroof open now, on a country lane, heading home. It's just a fantastic place to be in. I'm sure you will love these cars as well. If you haven't looked already, go check them out, take them for a test drive. There's not a crazy amount of them for sale on the market, so you might need to go look at a couple before you make that decision. I highly do recommend you just going checking these out. You know, maybe it's not for you, maybe it is, but it's a cool car, you feel good, value for money. Just take into consideration the maintenance and the amount you're gonna have to be spending on these cars to run them, and then you should be okay. So on that note, guys, I'm going to end today's video here. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope it's given you a little bit of a background into the story of me buying this 7 Series. But for now, like I said, I'm going to end it here, take this car for a little country blast while the sun's still out, and I'm going to see you on the next one. Take care, guys.